Now, the announcement by the former Deputy Prime Minister, Lord Prescott, that he wants to be a Labour candidate in the elections for police commissioners is a sign that these new posts could attract major figures from the political parties, or at least from Labour and Conservative. The first ever elections for police commissioners will take place in England and Wales, although not in London, in November. These individuals will replace police authorities with powers to control budgets, monitor performance, even sack chief constables. Although the policy was in the coalition agreement, Liberal Democrats dislike the idea because they fear that elected commissioners could politicise the police. Well, last autumn, the Lib Dems managed to delay the elections from May of this year to November. Then the party went even further and decided not to put up candidates. But now there are signs of revolt over that decision, as Leela Padmanabhan reports.
The plan for elected police commissioners is part of the Conservative so-called Big Society agenda, which involves a radical devolution of power to individuals and communities. The Liberal Democrats support localism, but they don't like this particular policy. The MP Tom Brake is their Home Affairs spokesman.
One of the major concerns that we have around elected police and crime commissioners is the politicisation of policing. We don't believe that having party politicians responsible for the strategy and budget of policing in a particular area is the way forward.
Lib Dem peers tried to obstruct the bill in the House of Lords without success. Now it's become law and the elections will take place in mid-November. Labour has set aside its original objections and party grandees like Lord Prescott are already putting their names in the hat. Other high-profile figures have declared an interest in standing for the Tories, such as the Iraq War veteran Colonel Tim Collins. But the Lib Dems have held back. In October, after a heated debate, the party's federal executive took a decision. Because of the opposition to the principle of police commissioners, there was to be a strong presumption against fielding Lib Dem candidates, and no funding would be available from party HQ. The idea that Lib Dems would be absent from ballot papers in such high-profile elections has angered activists. Richard Kemp leads the party's group in local government.
We can't shy away from something because we don't approve of it. We've got to get into those institutions and minimise the damage that they can cause. So we believe that liberalism should be on the ballot paper of every election wherever possible. It would have been better if the federal executive had just done nothing, they had no need to, and just let local activists, local councillors get on with the job of fighting these elected police commissioner elections, which are local elections, not national ones.
The Lib Dem activist and blogger Mark Pack draws a parallel with the policy for directly elected mayors, which the Lib Dems also opposed.
Here in London, coming up in May, we've got an election for London Mayor, and there's a Liberal Democrat candidate, very good chap, Brian Paddock. Yet the London Mayor is a post that the party opposed the creation of, said it would be the wrong way of running London, and the London Mayor has major powers over policing in London, but goes almost without saying that, of course, when an election for London Mayor comes up, there's a Liberal Democrat candidate. So the argument a lot of party grassroots members have been putting is to say we're very used to the idea that we contest elections for posts and under electoral systems where we don't agree with what's been created, what's been set up. But once the law is the law, you then fight the elections to your best of ability within them.
OK, I'll do that. Right. Thanks very much, Sue. That's much appreciated. I'll let you know. I've got to look at my diary first.
I spent a morning out and about with Paul Crossley, Lib Dem leader of Bath and North East Somerset Council. He believes there'll be calls for the official line to be overturned at the party's spring conference in March.
I think it's important in spring conference that this view is aired, and certainly amongst a very large number of activists there is a growing view that we should be contesting these elections. It's an election for a public body, for an important service that's going to be delivering important services to large numbers of people in control of very large budgets, and there has to be a choice and diversity in the offer that's given to the electorate.
Activists say the Lib Dems must not appear to be running scared of these elections. Paul Crossley argues that it's vital the party's distinctive position on law and order is put forward.
My concern is that all our police commissioners will come from the very tough stance, and I think it's very important that a more nuanced stance is put forward. And there is a different style that wants to lock ever-increasing numbers of people up in prison from a style that wants to have restorative justice and looks at the consequence and effects on victims. Just locking people up does not solve crime. So my big fear is that you're going to have very strong Robocop candidates promoted by some sections of the press, or you're going to have celebrity candidates. And I think both of those are not necessarily good for democracy in the long run.
The party's response is to hope that liberal-minded individuals will put themselves forward as independent candidates, which it would then recommend to its supporters. Tom Brake explains.
We will weigh in behind appropriate non-party political candidates that put themselves forward. And we will have to decide, individual members will have to decide which of those candidates they are comfortable with. We want people to come forward who understand that policing is about not only tackling crime, but it's also about prevention, for instance. And that's the sort of person who is likely to receive support from Liberal Democrats if they put themselves forward in a particular region.
But what if Lib Dem members disagree over which independent to support? What if there's no appropriate independent candidate to support? Luckily, however, for those who do want to field official party candidates, the Lib Dems are nothing if not internally democratic. The federal executive, confusingly perhaps, has left the door open for regional parties to challenge the national line and put forward candidates if they wish. Easier said than done, if the experience of Paul Crossley in the west of England is anything to go by.
We had a vote at our Western Region Conference, and we changed the presumption to the fact that their presumption would be that we do field candidates. So what that means over a seat such as Avon and Somerset, where we've got about 14 different constituencies, it means coordinating across a large area to get a consensus view that we actually want to put a candidate up.
Would have been an awful lot easier, wouldn't it, if the party had just had a presumption in favour of fielding candidates in the first place?
It would have been, yes, and that was what I was arguing for last summer. I was saying last summer we should have started the selection process in the autumn of last year for candidates to get well known.
Come November, it's possible that many voters will simply not have a choice of Liberal Democrat candidate, as was the case in general elections in the 1950s and 60s. Doesn't that worry Tom Brake?
Well, I understand that anything that is not a blanket policy across the country as a whole is more complex, and clearly it's going to be very much a patchwork quilt where we can't at the moment predict which parts of the country might have a Liberal Democrat candidate standing in and which will not. But I'm sure our members are able to cope with things that are complicated.